apoplectus.
That's what it is. Does he get nervous?
No.
Oh my.
Yeah, he's very social. We just got here, so I'm kind of trying to document what's going on. I just got punishwallstreet.org and .com.
So many of them. Mark Martin's on there, Mark James is on there. That dude, right, yeah. Definitely.
First place to tell me or give me advice.
It's so easy to overpower people.
This part is meant to You're all individual and unique, and you're all beautiful people. Stop watching the news, stop reading the newspapers. They're there to scare you and make you buy things. And when you buy things, you feed this. So let's just, you gotta work. If you gotta work, work. And donate something to the movement so we can keep on doing what we're doing. Thanks.
Thank you, you. He says he forgets everybody's name, so he just says, when they ask him, what's your name? I am you. And I am you as well. Is Mellow Man Ace still here? We lost Mellow Man Ace. He'll come back. What about Chris? Oh, Chris, beautiful.
I'm not sure I'm beautiful, but my name's Chris. No one special. Just I've heard, figured I'd come here and check it out and kind of hear what people were talking about. And it's a good thing people are starting to talk about the Fed. I don't know, the gentleman here earlier absolutely very eloquently put it, the Glass-Steagall Act, Glass-Steagall, I'm sorry, that definitely needs to be put back in place. We can't let our traditional mom and pop and even large banks just gamble our money away. Regarding the devaluing of the U.S. currency, a lot of the problem is, the reason the Fed's been printing money is because government spending's increased, but taxes have actually been lowered in a lot of ways, especially on the rich. So that gap between federal revenues and federal spending has led the Fed to print more money and to borrow more money, and that's what's been devaluing our currency. Along with that, between deunionization, union busting, mainly starting in the Reagan years, that's led pretty much everyone's incomes to drop except those in the top 1%. So that's really this disparity in wealth is coming largely from that, and combined with this printing of money to pay for these federal expenditures, that's largely what devalued the dollar. The top 5%, they have no problem. This devaluing of our currency hasn't really hurt them because more of that money is going towards them. The idea of going back to the gold standard, that has its ups and downs, but the reason they switched off of the gold standard was because it did, as that gentleman pointed out, it was very stringent. The Fed or the government could do very little because it was stuck to how much gold you had. The problem with that is it left the government very inept to respond to business cycles. And the idea that these business cycles started because of government intervention, this has been happening for hundreds of years. And actually, recessions were far worse before we moved off of the gold standard, before the Fed. The Fed is not perfect. You can absolutely make a case for ending it. It's got its ups and downs, whether it does more harm than good. That we can debate. It's certainly a good point. But this idea that things were rosy before the Fed came along, it's not really true. Like I said, recessions were far worse. Speculative bubbles, they were completely out of control. The reason we had the Great Depression is because the Fed didn't bail out the banks. Now, I'm not saying, I understand there's that controversy over bailing out the banks. We should take more of that money that they're getting and absolutely put just put more stringent, I guess, legislation on them, starting with Glass-Steagall. But this idea that just end the Fed, that will solve it, that's not really true. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Really, lower taxes on the rich, union busting, that's really what's hurting the middle class right now. And you guys are absolutely right. There's absolutely no voice for that 99%. Absolutely, that top 5% has been getting most of the representation in government. So, one other thing is it's important to note, Ron Paul is actually against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A lot of these civil liberties that Ron Paul supporters support, and I'm sure they really do in their heart, actually not letting the federal government telling the states what to do. That would actually decrease civil liberties. Things like the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Civil Rights Act of 1964, interracial marriage. These are things that came from the federal government. And they were imposing this on the states. So, just want to say that. I'm hoping this Occupy Wall Street thing doesn't get hijacked by Ron Paul and LaRouche people. Go to ObamaForTheWin.com, ObamaFTW.com. Click on my blog. You can see my posts. For the win. For the win. ObamaFTW.com.
You are campaigning for Obama?
No, mainly I am pretty much I'm trying to do my best to Obama confusion that a lot of Ron Paul and other small government supporters are dispelling. So,
Well, I invite you to come to the demands meeting, Chris, the community meeting where Occupy Los Angeles is figuring out what the demands are for us here in LA, because we went to LA. We did, last night in the General Assembly, decide to align with the initial statement from Occupy Wall Street. You can have to read it in a little while. But this is not a political campaign at all. Obama, Ron Paul, this is a people's movement. And as Jamie Glover said yesterday, who I think was an Obama supporter back in the day, you know, the hope that he promised us, we are grabbing